After her grandmother passed away, Lily stopped visiting the garden they once tended together. The roses wilted, the birdbath cracked, and the quiet backyard became a place she avoided. Too many memories in every corner. She told herself she was fine, but grief lingered like winter frost. One cold morning, as Lily stepped outside for the first time in weeks, a bright red cardinal landed on the old stone birdbath. It didn't fly away. It simply watched her, calm and steady, as if inviting her to remember what she'd been trying to forget. And that moment changed everything. Lily stood at the back door, hand resting on the cool metal handle, staring at the garden she hadn't touched since her grandmother passed. The once bright space was now a tangle of wilted stems and brittle branches, the kind of place where silence hung heavy. A cracked birdbath leaned slightly to one side, still holding a thin layer of frozen rain. She used to come out here every morning. Now she couldn't look at it without feeling her chest tighten. She told herself she'd return when she was ready. Weeks passed. She never was. Stepping outside felt like stepping into a memory she wasn't sure she could bear. Every corner of the garden held some trace of the woman who raised her, hands in the soil, soft humming, the way she'd gently tilt Lily's chin and say, "Look closely." Even small things teach us how to grow. But Lily wasn't growing. She felt stuck, hollow, and guilty for letting everything fall apart. That morning, though, something was different. Maybe it was the faint sunlight pressing through the gray sky. Maybe it was the strange pull she felt toward the door. Or maybe it was simply time. Lily took a slow breath, stepped out into the cold air, and felt the garden's stillness settle around her. She didn't yet know something was waiting for her. Something small, red, and quietly persistent. Lily walked slowly across the brittle grass, each step crunching softly beneath her boots. She hadn't planned to stay outside long, just long enough to breathe in a place that once felt like home. But something bright caught her eye near the center of the wilted garden. A cardinal, perched on the cracked birdbath. It stood perfectly still, feathers vivid against the dull, winter-worn stone. The garden had forgotten its colors, but this bird looked like a single ember refusing to go out. Lily froze. Cardinals weren't uncommon, but this one felt different. Didn't flinch, didn't flutter, didn't sing. It simply stared at her, head tilted, as if acknowledging her presence after a long absence. A soft wind brushed past, nudging a few dead leaves across the ground. Still the bird didn't move. Against her will, Lily stepped closer. She brushed her fingers along the rim of a shriveled marigold, a memory surfacing before she could stop it. Her grandmother laughing as Lily tried to plant them crooked, the warm smell of soil, the sun catching in her silver hair. Lily blinked hard. She wasn't ready for this. Not the memories, not the ache, not the way something inside her loosened at the sight of the bird. The cardinal let out a single quiet chirp, short, soft, almost like a nudge. Lily wasn't sure why, but she whispered, "Hi." It was the first word she had spoken to the garden in months. The cardinal stayed only a moment longer before lifting off the birdbath and settling on a low branch nearby, as if encouraging Lily to follow. She didn't know why she did, but her feet moved toward the center of the garden on their own. She stopped beside the rose bushes. Once her grandmother's pride and joy, they were now a bramble of dried stems and faded petals. Lily reached out and touched one of the brittle blossoms. It crumbled beneath her fingertips, releasing a faint scent, barely there but unmistakable. Her grandmother's perfume, the one she wore every morning while watering these roses. Lily's breath caught. Memories flickered like small sparks, hands guiding hers as she pruned the branches, warm laughter rising with the summer air, the gentle voice saying, "Roses take patience, sweetheart." And so do we. The ache that followed was sharp, unexpected. She stepped back, turning toward the old wooden bench beneath the oak tree. They used to sit there in the evenings, sharing stories and watching the birds settle for the night. She could almost see her grandmother there now, soft smile, weathered hands folded neatly in her lap. The memories came too quickly, too vividly, too painfully. Lily pressed a hand to her chest, overwhelmed. Behind her, the cardinal chirped again, soft, patient, not demanding, just present. It should have comforted her. Instead, tears blurred her vision. She turned and walked back toward the house, heart aching with the weight of everything she thought she was ready to face. But the garden wasn't done remembering, and neither was she. The next morning, Lily stayed inside. She stood at the kitchen window with a mug warming her hands, staring at the garden she had run from the day before. The wilted roses, the empty bench, the cracked birdbath, they all felt heavier now, as if touching those memories had awakened something she wasn't ready to carry. She watched the garden from behind the glass, safe in the distance, but it didn't feel safe. It felt avoidant, cowardly, and she hated that she wasn't strong enough to walk back out there. The cardinal didn't appear that morning, or the next. On the third day, Lily stepped outside just enough to check, just enough to pretend she wasn't checking, and found nothing but cold wind pushing leaves across the ground. The silence felt different this time, not peaceful, empty. She wrapped her arms around herself, guilt rising like a tide she couldn't stop. The garden deserved better. Her grandmother deserved better. And Lily couldn't understand why something as simple as a red bird had made her feel hopeful one moment and cracked open the next. She whispered to the empty birdbath, "I'm sorry." The apology surprised her. She wasn't sure who it was for. The cardinal, the garden, or the woman who once filled it with life. A sharp gust of wind made the dry branches rattle, sounding almost like a reply. But when Lily looked up, there was no bright red shape waiting for her. Just winter, just stillness, just the ache of a love she hadn't learned how to revisit. On the fourth morning without the cardinal, Lily opened the back door just to feel the air. The cold brushed her face gently, the kind of cold that wakes something inside you. She stepped out onto the creaking wooden porch, wrapping her sweater tighter around her shoulders. She almost turned back inside, until she heard footsteps behind her fence. A soft voice called, "Lily." It was Mrs. Harper, the elderly woman who lived next door. Her hands were tucked into the pockets of her faded coat, and her kind eyes held something Lily hadn't expected to see there, recognition. "I used to watch you and your grandmother tend that garden," Mrs. Harper said with a small smile. "Every spring without fail. You two brought more color to this street than any of us." Lily swallowed, unsure how to respond. Mrs. Harper stepped closer, nodding toward the wilted roses. "She loved this place. Anyone could see that, and she loved the way you cared for it with her." Lily felt something tighten in her chest. The older woman hesitated, then added softly, "You know we don't keep gardens alive to stop them from dying. We keep them because they remind us of the people who showed us how to grow." Silence settled between them, gentle, not heavy. And then Mrs. Harper glanced toward the bare branches above. "You know," she said quietly, "cardinals often return to the places where love lingers." The words settled deep inside Lily, warm as sunlight even in the cold. Mrs. Harper squeezed her hand once before heading back home, leaving Lily standing alone with a truth she could no longer push away. That afternoon, Lily found herself standing at the threshold of the garden again. She hadn't planned to be there. Her feet simply carried her. Mrs. Harper's words still echoed softly inside her, settling into places she hadn't touched in months. She took a slow breath, stepped onto the brittle grass, and knelt beside the nearest patch of dried stems. Her hands hovered uncertainly at first, as if touching the soil might break something fragile inside her. But then she wrapped her fingers around a dried weed and pulled. Came free with a soft snap. Lily exhaled, not in pain, but in release. She cleared another weed, then another. Soon her palms were smudged with cold dirt, and her knees pressed into the softened earth. Every small movement stirred a memory, her grandmother laughing when Lily overwatered the mint, humming a tune while trimming the rosemary, gently guiding Lily's hands as they planted marigolds in perfectly crooked rows. Each memory hurt, but each one warmed her too. A faint flutter sounded above her. Lily looked up. The cardinal had returned. It perched on a low branch just a few feet away, feathers glowing like a spark in the pale light. It didn't sing, didn't move, just watched steady and calm the same way it had the first time. Lily felt her breath catch, not in grief but in something softer. "Thank you," she whispered, and for the first time since her grandmother's passing, she felt the garden breathe again. Over the next few days, Lily returned to the garden with a steadiness she didn't fully understand, but didn't question. She cleared the dead branches, pruned the wilted edges, and swept away layers of fallen leaves. The work was slow, gentle, and oddly comforting. Every small patch of clean soil felt like uncovering a piece of her grandmother's love. One morning, Lily brought home a few fresh flowers, marigolds, rosemary, and a single white rose. She planted them in the places her grandmother once cared for most. Her hands moved with quiet confidence, guided by old memories that now felt less like wounds and more like familiar warmth. When she approached the cracked birdbath, she paused. The fracture down its side was deeper than she remembered. Instead of discarding it, she patched the crack with care, smoothing the new stone and wiping away the dust with her sleeve. When she stepped back, the birdbath looked whole again, imperfect but standing strong. As the sun rose higher, a flutter of red streaked across the garden. The cardinal landed on the freshly cleaned rim of the birdbath, its reflection rippling faintly in the water she had poured. It hopped closer, tilting its head as if inspecting her work, then lifted its wings slightly, almost like a small blessing. Lily smiled, the warmth rising in her chest spreading gently through her. For the first time, the garden didn't feel like a reminder of loss. It felt like a place where love had simply changed shape, where something ended and something else quietly began. As the sun dipped behind the fence that evening, Lily stood in the center of the garden she had once been afraid to face. Fresh soil darkened her palms, and the scent of new flowers drifted gently through the air. The repaired birdbath glowed softly in the fading light, and the cardinal perched on its rim calm, steady, present. Lily closed her eyes for a moment. She didn't feel the sharp ache she had felt weeks ago. She felt something quieter, like a memory settling into its rightful place instead of pressing against her heart. Her grandmother wasn't gone from the garden. She was woven into it, in the flowers they planted, in the soil they turned, in every small ritual of care. Lily realized then that remembering didn't have to hurt. It could warm, soften, guide. And healing didn't mean moving on. It meant moving with the love that remained. So let this story leave you with a few gentle truths. 1. Grief changes shape when you begin to face it. 2. Love doesn't disappear, it transforms. 3. Small steps count even when they feel fragile. 4. Returning to what hurts is often how we heal. 5. The people we lose remain in the things they touched. 6. And sometimes a small red bird shows up to guide us back to what we've forgotten. Lily looked at the cardinal and whispered, "Thank you." And in the quiet of the blooming garden, she finally felt something she thought she had lost forever. Peace. As the sun dipped behind the fence that evening, Lily stood in the center of the garden she had once been afraid to face. Fresh soil darkened her palms, and the scent of new flowers drifted gently through the air. The repaired birdbath glowed softly in the fading light, and the cardinal perched on its rim calm, steady, present. Lily closed her eyes for a moment. She didn't feel the sharp ache she had felt weeks ago. She felt something quieter, like a memory settling into its rightful place instead of pressing against her heart. Her grandmother wasn't gone from the garden. She was woven into it, in the flowers they planted, in the soil they turned, in every small ritual of care. Lily realized then that remembering didn't have to hurt. It could warm, soften, guide. And healing didn't mean moving on. It meant moving with the love that remained. So let this story leave you with a few gentle truths. 1. Grief changes shape when you begin to face it. 2. Love doesn't disappear, it transforms. 3. Small steps count even when they feel fragile. 4. Returning to what hurts is often how we heal. 5. The people we lose remain in the things they touched. 6. And sometimes a small red bird shows up to guide us back to what we've forgotten. Lily looked at the cardinal and whispered, "Thank you." And in the quiet of the blooming garden, she finally felt something she thought she had lost forever. Peace. As the sun dipped behind the fence that evening, Lily stood in the center of the garden she had once been afraid to face. Fresh soil darkened her palms, and the scent of new flowers drifted gently through the air. The repaired birdbath glowed softly in the fading light, and the cardinal perched on its rim calm, steady, present. Lily closed her eyes for a moment. She didn't feel the sharp ache she had felt weeks ago. She felt something quieter, like a memory settling into its rightful place instead of pressing against her heart. Her grandmother wasn't gone from the garden. She was woven into it, in the flowers they planted, in the soil they turned, in every small ritual of care. Lily realized then that remembering didn't have to hurt. It could warm, soften, guide. And healing didn't mean moving on. It meant moving with the love that remained. So let this story leave you with a few gentle truths. 1. Grief changes shape when you begin to face it. 2. Love doesn't disappear, it transforms. 3. Small steps count even when they feel fragile. 4. Returning to what hurts is often how we heal. 5. The people we lose remain in the things they touched. 6. And sometimes a small red bird shows up to guide us back to what we've forgotten. Lily looked at the cardinal and whispered, "Thank you." And in the quiet of the blooming garden, she finally felt something she thought she had lost forever. Peace.